Pablo, good to see you. How you doing? First one as always. Let's go. How you doing, brother? How's things? Also, Pablo, thank you so much for retweeting and essentially liking the live straight away. Into your profile. Pin. There we go. No worries, 8 miles. Let's go, Pablo. Stormy, good to see you as well. How you doing, Stormy? How you been? Jason, good to see you as well. How you doing? Evening. Hello, Miles. T, good to see you as well. How you doing, T? How you been? So I'm just pinning the live. There we go. Okay, let's do intro disclaimer. By that time, hopefully everyone's tuned in. So, welcome to the CMF Live. If you're watching this for the first time ever, the CMF stands for Crypto Mouse Family. My name is Miles. You can tune to this live Monday to Friday, 10 p.m. long time onwards for the most recent news regarding cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, regulations, pretty much all the vital information you should know about regarding the world completely transforming into a digital space. The disclaimer of this live, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. And we also do Q&As in this live as well, which means if you ever have any questions, put it down in the comment section. More than happy to help you out. And also, this is episode 391 of the CMF Live. So we're on episode 391 right now. It's incredible. Now, before we do start off essentially on tonight's live show, the first news we are going to be covering is regarding the US shutdown situation, because it does have an impact on the market space still. Let's go to the comment section first, and then we go straight into the first news. So let's see what's happening inside the comment section first. We were here. Good evening, Miles and CMF. Free Feather, good to see you as well. How you doing? Hi, Miles and CMF. How you doing today? I'm doing great, Carlos. Good to see you as well. Hello, Miles and CMF. Scott, good to see you as well. How you doing? Hello, Miles and CMF. Comatose, good to see you as well. How you doing? Let's go, Scott. Ibran. Hi, Miles and CMF family. Good to see you as well. How you doing, Ibran? Hi, Miles. Had a rough day today with anti-crypto bots, all telling it's all too good to be true, and an idiot for believing. I have to keep the faith. Paul, let's go. Don't worry, I have people like that around me as well who still don't believe in the crypto space. Scott, let's go. Share the live. Let's go, Scott. Let's go, Scott. Good evening, Miles and all CMF. JP, good to see you as well, brother. How you doing? How you been? Okay, let's go straight to the first news, and hopefully by that time everyone is tuned in for the first part of tonight's live. Right. Regarding the US shutdown situation, we are nearing essentially our 4th week, and it seems that the Democratic Party is not backing down in terms of giving some sort of votes. The Republican Party is not going to back down, and neither is Trump. And well, these are the newest updates we've had so far. The US shutdown nears essentially its 4th week as the Senate votes and crypto talks are in advance right now. Now, there are crypto conversations being made. Yes, the essentially SEC cannot process any sort of ETFs unless it's an emergency meeting. However, crypto talks are still being made with the Fed and the Senate as well. The United States government shutdown is nearing its 4th week, putting pressure essentially on lawmakers to resolve the funding essentially impasse while all addressing key issues essentially in the digital asset sector. As the Senate prepares essentially for another vote to reopen the government, Democratic senators are moving forward with plans to meet crypto executives to discuss these essentially stalled market structure bills. The Senate is set to vote at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time on essentially making the 11th attempt to end the shutdown. If the vote succeeds and receives presidential approval, federal agencies would reopen on the other hand, and another failure also essentially will prolong what is already one of the one of the longest government shutdowns in US history. The current impasse, which began essentially on October 1st, has now trails only to shutdowns of 1995 and 2018-2019 in duration. Now, despite the gridlock situation, lawmakers continue to engage in policy discussions outside the budget debates, and also on Wednesday, essentially tomorrow, the Senate Democrats are expected to host a roundtable with essentially top executives, as I explained on yesterday's live as well, with Coinbase, Kraken, Ripple, and Circle. That is happening tomorrow. Senate Christian essentially Gilbert is leading the meeting, which aims to explore the long-stalled U.S. essentially crypto market structure bill. The discussion follows essentially the introduction of Democratic counter-proposals to the market structure bill earlier this month. Also, critics argue that the proposal could harm decentralized finance and undermine the bipartisan momentum behind the House Clarity Act, which passed in July. The Senate bill is intended to as a counterparty to the Clarity Act that's going to be passing through very soon, designed to establish a comprehensive federal framework so that digital assets can bring innovation inside the United States. While lawmakers debate digital asset regulations, the ongoing government shutdown situation has slowed progress. Another major development in the crypto sector is the ETFs, which the SEC is still not able to be able to process because we're in a government shutdown. The missed essentially deadlines occurred recently as well, and October was expected to be a pivotal month for crypto ETFs. It was known to be up October, but it ended up being down October with the government shutdown situation and the massive tariffs. Meanwhile, the prolonged essentially shutdown and ongoing regulatory uncertainty appears to have shifted some investor sentiments towards Bitcoin and gold. However, Bitcoin has stayed essentially in some sort of territory of up, down, nobody knows where it's going for the past 3 essentially months. Now, trading for this particular month, trading near essentially 107, but now Bitcoin is around the 113, 110 marker. But this government shutdown situation is nearing its 4th week, and we still haven't had any sort of news from the Democratic Party of are they going to give their votes to open the government back up. And we know for a fact that Trump is not going to back down. So the only hope is that the Democratic Party essentially comes to their senses and essentially decides to open the government. We only need 4 to 5 votes, if I'm not mistaken, max 6 votes to get it up and running again. But on the other side, that we do have this government shutdown situation going, there is a Bitcoin whale that we've talked about on yesterday's live show as well, who mysteriously was the man who put a massive, essentially short position down 30 minutes before Trump made the first ever announcement of the China tariff situations, the 100% tariff situations. That mysterious whale and other whales are now opening up more short positions on Bitcoin. So $235 million worth of Bitcoin shorts has been placed right now. The $11 billion Bitcoin whale is back with another massive short position, signaling that some large investors are hedging for more crypto market downside in the tariff concerns and the ongoing government shutdown situation. The Bitcoin whale, which is essentially has a massive, ginormous portfolio and quite perfectly timing his movements, returned essentially with $235 million and 10 times leverage short positions on Bitcoin. In his essentially opinion, or what inside information he may have, he's opened up a humongous essentially short position on Bitcoin because he thinks we're about to go down further again. The large investor opened a short position essentially when Bitcoin was trading at around 111,000, 190. He currently faces essentially a $2.6 million unrealized loss on his short bet, which stands out to be liquidated if Bitcoin's price surpasses $112,368, according to essentially blockchain data. Now, the new short bet comes a week after the same whale netted about $200 million in profits from the crypto market crash, with a similar leverage short position. In trading, leverage refers to a strategy that allows investors to open larger positions on the market space. I just want to say one thing. Just because this massive whale that's come out of nowhere has put a short position on the market space, it doesn't mean it's a guarantee that we are going to be going down essentially inside this market space. But it is an outcome essentially that the market is still going to be imbalanced until we get some sort of news coming up. Mainly, the government's going to open up. Second, the SEC is going to process ETFs. And third, most importantly, the Clarity Act passing through. The China situation can be resolved in between those essentially 1, 2, and 3. Meanwhile, the new Bitcoin whales are facing essentially unrealized losses of over $6.95 billion after the latest crypto market crash saw Bitcoin fall recently essentially below the 113 levels. However, Bitcoin did essentially do some sort of movements today because of the rumors and essentially announcements that were made that Trump would be meeting essentially with President Xi Jinping in South Korea, Seoul. But it turns out maybe he's not, which again put the crypto market space in limbo. So Trump confirms meeting with China and Bitcoin rebounds. So if you're wondering to yourself, why did the crypto market suddenly shoot up today? And why did Bitcoin shoot up and everything else followed it? Well, it was because it was confirmed that Trump is meeting essentially Xi Jinping in Seoul. However, so this is what happened. President Donald Trump has confirmed a meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping at the essentially APEC summit in Seoul, essentially the capital of South Korea, on October essentially 31st, 2025, reversing earlier signals of no meeting. The announcement eased the US-China trade tensions, triggering a sharp recovery inside the crypto market space, which essentially the Bitcoin and the altcoins experienced a jump inside the market space. Now, President Trump confirmed the upcoming meetings that it's going to be happening, and Trump initially signaled essentially escalating tariffs and ruled out essentially a meeting. His reversal essentially eased trades and tensions, which were acknowledged with the public statement. So this is the public statement that was made by Trump essentially. We're going to meet in South Korea with President Xi Jinping and other people too. I think we're going to be fine with China, but we have to have a fair deal. It's going to be fair, he said to Fox News. The news sparked a positive reaction inside the crypto market space, and notable for a 2% rise in Bitcoin. Major altcoins saw essentially gains between 3.5% and 4%, reversing the market's prior sentiment categorized by extreme fear. So the market started doing good. Financial implications are evident as cryptocurrency's fear and greed index essentially improved markets post-announcements, highlighting a shift from uncertainties fueled by previous US and China tariff essentially confrontation episodes to trade optimism. Prior to the confirmation, uncertainties led to a substantial market turbulence, with over essentially has been estimated essentially $20 billion, but the numbers were roughly about 9.5 billion. Now, this is where the plot twist comes in. After we got the announcement that Trump, it's confirmed with Fox News that Trump is going to be meeting Xi Jinping at the end of this month to discuss the China trade, essentially tariff policy situation, then came a plot twist today. Former President Donald Trump's remarks about a possible cancelled meeting with essentially China's President Xi Jinping sent fresh shockwaves through the financial markets. Speaking to Republican senators, Trump said maybe it won't happen. His comments cast doubt on trade progress between the two world powers. On one side, it's been confirmed through Trump essentially that he is going to be meeting with Xi Jinping at the end of the month in South Korea to discuss the China's trade, essentially tariff policy situation. On the other side, it seems like it might not happen, which the first news made the crypto market space jump, and everybody saw the market shoot up. And the second news left the market on limbo, where it said it might not happen. We honestly have to see how it plays out by the end of the month. What I would say is it is in China's best interest to make a deal with the US. It honestly is in China's best interest to make a deal with the US, because if China wants to continue the situation of we are strong, we can withstand anything, they are going to collapse as an economy, and it's going to be a much more bigger damage on the world global space, to be fairly honest. Because the first tariff situation on China impacted the world by Trump showing his power, not using missiles or nuclear power, just by collapsing the entire global market space was more than enough for everybody around the world to see the power the US has on the entire financial essentially sector. For people that didn't know, because a lot of people thought that China is a massive powerhouse, and it is, but it's nowhere near as a massive powerhouse compared to the US, which made a lot of people realize that when Trump collapsed the entire market space just to prove a point, which then made every country turn essentially against China, because they don't want their economies collapsing overnight either, because the US doesn't have to use missiles, just collapse their economy. within 24 hours, essentially. But it is honestly, in China's best interest to make some sort of a deal, because if it goes into that 100% tariff situation, it's going to impact them quite bad in the long run. They must be very stupid, no matter how stubborn they may be, but I don't think they're stupid. Now, moving on from that to FSB, but before we go through that, let's go inside the comment section first. We're going to talk about some crypto regulations from the FSB, but before we go through that, let's see what's happening inside the comment section. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you have any questions or comments, go for it inside the comment section. More than happy to help you out. So let's see what's happening inside the comment section. We were here. Yeah. Good evening, Miles. How are you doing, man? Long time. Theo's good to see you as well. How you doing, brother? I've been doing good. How's things with you? Good evening, Miles and family. Ian, good to see you as well. How you doing? Good evening, Professor Miles and the rest of the CMF family. Good to see you as well, Frankie. How you doing? Morning, Miles and CMF. Shelly, good to see you as well. Morning. How you doing? What up, Miles and CMF? Hope all is well. Ray, good to see you as well, brother. How you doing? Even Miles and CMF Talk, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Hello, my friend. Hello, Commander. Let's go, Scott. How's your day been, Miles and CMF? Linus been good. How's your day been? Miles, is there any good news today from the Fed officials in the US? None. There's no good news. There's just been no updates regarding the Fed so far. Well, we're going to go through some Fed news in terms of perspectives coming in from major, essentially, CEOs of what's going to be happening, what announcements the Fed could possibly be making, but updates directly from the Fed, no. Share the live, repost, hit the like button, invite friends and family. Let's go, Scott. Facts. Honestly, thank you so much to everybody who has already liked and retweeted this live. Amazing. Thank you so much. And if you watch us on YouTube, thanks so much to everyone who's also liked the live, and for people who put comments outside the live as well. Thank you so much. Good evening, Miles. Hope you had a great day. Let's go, Mike. Good to see you as well, brother. How you doing? Evening all. Susie, good to see you as well. How you doing? BTC and the rest of the cryptos did jump. Then they all dive straight down again. Yep, that's the reason why. Because we got news that Trump is meeting Xi Jinping in South Korea. And then news straight after that it might not happen, which made the crypto space jump and then dive right back down. Hi, Miles and CMF. Peg, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Like, comment, and repost. Let's go, Peg. Facts. Good evening, Miles and CMF family. What's up? Hope you had a good day, my friend. Let's go, Carl. Good to see you as well. How you doing, brother? How you been? Now, FSB highlights the gaps in global crypto regulations. So the Financial Stability Board has released some sort of a paper, which we're going to go through now, on what's actually happening in terms of crypto regulations. So the Financial Stability Board released a thematic, essentially, peer review on October 2025 from the Basel, Switzerland, essentially assessing the global regulatory framework implementation for crypto asset activities, essentially revealing gaps and essentially inconsistencies. These highlighted this essentially disparities could threaten financial stability and hinder the developments of resilient digital asset ecosystems, prompting calls for consistent regulatory implementations worldwide. The Financial Stability Board essentially released this paper review on implementing the global regulatory framework for crypto asset activities. This report highlights the progress and essentially identifies gaps and regulations impacting financial stabilities. Now, this is what essentially was said directly from them. The Financial Stability Chairman, essentially board member, said, peer review reveals significant gaps and inconsistencies in implementing the FSB's global framework for crypto asset activities that could essentially pose risk to financial stability and to the development of a resilient digital asset ecosystem, said the FSB official press release. The FSB's essentially findings may influence future regulatory essentially agendas, signal a need for a uniform enforcement among nations. Concerns essentially center on potential arbitrary and financial instability from uneven, essentially, regulatory applications affecting major cryptocurrencies and stablecoins. Experts also speculate that without consistent regulations, crypto markets could face prolonged instability. In that sense, and historical trends do show that disparate regulations foster market imbalances and highlighting essentially the importance of the FSB's call for essentially action. Similar reviews, such as the 2023 FSB Global Framework, highlighted issues that led to fragmented oversights and previous regulatory gaps contribute to increased unregulated market activities, echoing concerns raised in the 2025 report. The financial experts suggest that the FSB emphasizes on uniform regulatory application is essentially crucial for stablecoin ecosystems and for a stable crypto ecosystem. And the historical patterns do imply that ignoring these essential recommendations might be a disaster, essentially. I 100% agree. And what I think the FSB is trying to achieve is a brilliant move. I mean, they did try to progress it through Switzerland, discussing the global market space and how regulations in terms of a uniform, in terms of every world having some sort of regulations that do match others. It goes back to essentially the New Delhi summit that we had, the G20 summit that we had in New Delhi about 2-3 years ago, where essentially they discussed the matter of cryptocurrencies and regulations about 2-3 years ago. And they said the same way essentially we treat planes in the sky, it's the same way we should be treating cryptocurrencies in the G20 essentially countries and beyond, which is exactly what the FSB is trying to mention, that countries need to come together in terms of crypto regulations. Yes, every jurisdiction could create some of their own different regulations when it comes to cryptocurrencies, but the majority of the regulations should be the same. And that's essentially what they're trying to say right now regarding the FSB coming out and talking about the crypto regulations, that more countries need to be coming together to create these regulations, which is brilliant to see because more regulations equals utility. Now, JP Morgan is what we're going to talk about next on tonight's live. But before we talk about JP Morgan, let's go inside the comment section first, and then we go straight into the JP Morgan news. Let's see where we're inside the comment section. Have you seen what happened to Cardano today? Dropped 58%. I haven't seen what's happened to essentially Cardano in any sort of a way. It's mainly to do with because I don't hold it, and that's why it never came across my news section to read about it. But I can take a look into it, get back to you after live, no problem. Hi, Miles, the family. Alex, good to see you. How you doing? JP Morgan predicts US dollar declines, essentially aimed Fed cuts. So a report comes out today from JP Morgan Chase and predicts that the US dollar index will weaken to essentially 91 by mid-2026, aimed expectations of a Fed rate cut. Now, we are expecting to have a few more Fed rate cuts, apparently. Now, a declining dollar could impact cryptocurrency markets favorably. When traditional markets don't do too well, the alternative market space, the crypto market space, does very well. So JP Morgan's report suggesting that the dollar is going to be weakened as we go along could play out very beneficial for the entire crypto space, as investors' essentially interest shifts towards riskier assets or potential reduced real yields. JP Morgan Chase projects a weaker US dollar by mid-2026, linked to anticipated Federal Reserve interest rate cuts, and analysts essentially cite US economic essentially with other markets and diminished essentially demand for safe haven investments as contributing factors. The bank's essentially experts predict that the dollar index will fall to essentially 91. The anticipated US dollar decline could lead to increased volatility in financial markets, and JP Morgan's stance aligns with other industry predictions about the dollar's trajectory. As the currency essentially weakens, risk assets like cryptocurrencies might see heightened interest from investors. And market observers and financial analysts are closely watching essentially for further clues or from the Federal Reserve on its essentially future moves. Are we going to be getting more rate cuts? No public statements from JP Morgan's leadership directly confirms the forecast of the DXY target, the 91, though the sentiment exists broadly in the market discussions. And insights essentially and the research teams highlight that a weakened US dollar could essentially catalyze the capital inflows into cryptocurrencies. And cryptocurrency markets typically react favorably to such macroeconomic conditions, indicating both potential opportunities for major cryptocurrencies. This is essentially what was said by JP Morgan. We look for more US dollar weakness in this year, predicted on the same combination of the essentially cyclical factors, including essentially the US moderation in tariffs and the structural factors such as essentially valuations, physical flow dynamics, and policy uncertainties that we have been discussing for several months now, said essentially the co-head of global FX strategy at JP Morgan. So JP Morgan's newest announcements is that the dollar is essentially progressively going to get weaker as we go in essentially along to mid-2026, which is essentially going to be playing out very favorably for the entire crypto space if Bitcoin essentially doesn't follow tech stocks. Look, I'll be very honest. there's going to be certain news articles like this coming out, or announcements coming out from JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Franklin Templeton, and these are good news, essentially, sources to know about regarding, the dollar is going to get weakened. It's going to play out very favorably for the crypto space, and it should do, yes. But unfortunately, we're stuck behind Bitcoin's treacherous footsteps that sometimes follows tech stocks. The only thing, and I mean the only thing, that's going to help the entire crypto space is utility. The only thing. The dollar getting weakened, yes, it's beneficial for the crypto space. It's not as beneficial as utility coming in for the crypto space. The ETFs, yes, they're incredibly beneficial for the crypto space. Yet, utility is more beneficial for the crypto space. That is the only thing that's going to get, essentially, split the entire crypto space apart. And that's what we want. We want the Clarity Act, and we want to split away completely and decouple from Bitcoin's footsteps. Because even if the US dollar weakens and the alternative market space is supposed to be seen as, the other market space everybody should be entering into, Bitcoin at that moment in time could just follow tech stocks because of another tariff situation that might happen. But if we have the Clarity Act, if we have utility, then who cares what Bitcoin's next footsteps are going to be? Following tech stocks, following gold, following whoever it wants to. Because it doesn't affect us anymore because we have the Clarity Act. That is the most important thing we can get inside the crypto space, and that is why we need this government shutdown situation to end, and why we need the Democratic Party to give the damn 4 to 5, 6 votes that they need to give to get this market up and running. But now, putting that to one side, David Sachs essentially is what we're going to talk about next. David Sachs meets the Senate Banking Committee on crypto regulations. That's a big one. This is what we want. We want regulations essentially happening inside the crypto space. So David Sachs, recently appointed the crypto, essentially, Caesar under President Donald Trump, is meeting with Republican members of the Senate Banking Committee. And the aim of essentially this meeting is to accelerate the passage, essentially, the passage of essentially Bitcoin and digital asset market structures and legislation is essentially beyond the committee stage. Now, the discussions are intended to address the baptism essentially concerns and revive stalled negotiations. Now, I'll be very honest, Republicans are very pro-crypto. They're pro-crypto, pro-innovation, and so on. Democrats, the Democratic politicians, just tend to ruin everything. I mean, they are the reason why we're stuck like this and we can't get the crypto up and running. The month that's supposed to be known as October for the crypto space, was ruined by Democrats not giving 4 or 5 votes. Essentially, the recognized as a tech entrepreneur and investor, David Sachs has become an influential figure inside the crypto policy arena. His essentially role focuses on advancing artificial intelligence, and this meeting symbolizes essentially an effort to create more structured and regulated environments for Bitcoin and other digital assets inside the United States. The meeting with the Senate Banking Committee involves key Republican figures, including Senator John Kennedy. Kennedy has expressed concerns about the legislative process and the potential implications of the bill. Efforts for essentially baptism corporation are essentially at the forefront, with the industry roundtables also hosted by the Senators Christian Gilbert and Tim Scott. These roundtables included attendees from leading crypto firms such as Coinbase, Ripple Labs, Chainlink Labs, and Uniswap Labs also. This essentially indicates a strong institutional involvement in the ongoing industry and lobbying for much more clearer crypto regulations in that sector. Now, known for his executive roles as the COO of PayPal and the founder essentially of Yammer, David Sachs has essentially storied history in the tech industry and an angel in terms of a venture capital investor. David Sachs has supported numerous technologies and crypto ventures in his recent government appointee position. So he is technically one of the best candidates to be having this discussion with essentially the Republicans regarding crypto regulations. The reason why David Sachs is not having these discussions with the Democratic Party, because when you talk to a Democratic politician, it's like talking to a brick wall. Everything you say will just bounce off. So what's the point of David Sachs even having a sit down with the Democratic Party? Hence why he's having a sit down with the Republican Party. Bitcoin is directly referenced essentially as a target in the legislative discussions. The focus essentially revolves around its market structure and achieving regulatory clarity. This could have impacts on the broader digital asset markets, including Ethereum, essentially. And This, in terms of the market space and major essentially DeFi protocols, as investor protections and innovations remains in terms of central topics. While no specific on-chain data or essentially or large-scale flows have been reported as of October 21st into October 21st, 2025, analysts are closely monitoring the situation. And historical baptism and congressional meetings on the crypto legislations have been associated with short-term price volatility for the market space. Efforts to continue to delegate essentially the roles for the SEC and CFTC in digital asset regulations is one of the key factors. The Clarity Act will do so much for the crypto space, and we could have seen the Clarity Act. Honestly, we could have seen the Clarity Act happen. We could have went into utility slowly, but unfortunately, the Democratic Party, as always, just ruins everything. They ruined essentially the starting a government shutdown situation, which ended and essentially before it even started, it ended the up October for the crypto space. And then essentially the Clarity Act is going to be passed through again because of the Democratic Party, and then the ETF is going to be passed through again because of the Democratic Party. Discussions remain essentially continuous, yet they aim to solidify clear frameworks for overseeing essentially the crypto assets. Now, developers and committees active on platforms like GitHub and Telegram are also nearly observing these regulatory pushes. So honestly, let's see what comes out of this Republican meeting with essentially David Sachs on the discussion of crypto regulations, because it's a very important thing and it needs to be resolved. We need to get regulations ASAP. Honestly, because the next time Bitcoin decides to follow tech stocks and we have regulations and we have utility, nobody cares anymore what Bitcoin does. Bitcoin can go up, down, follow tech stocks, follow gold, follow cash, follow Russia and China news. It can follow whoever news it wants. Nobody cares about Bitcoin's footsteps anymore because we have utility and everybody's split up. Or the next time the Democratic Party throws a tantrum, essentially, and decides to do a government shutdown, again, it wouldn't matter because we have a crypto regulation, we have utility. You see where this is going. Now, moving on, essentially, from the sit-down the Republican Party is going to be having with David Sachs to the UK government. Before we talk about the UK government in terms of the crypto space, let's go inside the comment section first, and then we go straight into UK government news. Let's see where we're at inside the comment section. We were at here, I think. Yeah. Hi, Master Family. Alex, good to see you. So how you doing? How you been? What about the impact of gold's price? Yes, gold got impacted heavily because of the Jinping and Trump announcements that they might be meeting, and then last minute the meeting got cancelled. Gold went down, Bitcoin went up. Ironically, Bitcoin is supposed to be known as a safe haven or the digital gold, but it reacts the opposite to gold. Good question, Shelley. Good point. All facts. The Democrats do intend to ruin everything. Shots fired. Love it, Miles. They weren't always as bad as they are now. I agree. Hi, Miles and CMF. George, good to see you as well. How you doing? I agree with you, Ray. Hi, Scott. Hope all is well. Let's go. You are correct. Shame to say it. And I am a registered Democrat. Let's go, Scott. Josh or Josk, whoever it is from YouTube, I don't know what you're saying. It's in a different language. If you can type it in English, I don't have a button to translate it, so I can see what you're saying. If you do have a question or something to say, just type it in English if you can, possibly. Thank you. Miles, what about Dong Dinner revalue? How's the crypto system impacting that? It shouldn't be, to be honest. It shouldn't be, to be fairly honest. But yeah, I understand the concerns. Ray, seriously, brother, they weren't always that bad. A lot of us brown and black folks were raised Democrats. That doesn't make it right, though. Way too extreme now. I agree. And the Democratic Party wasn't always bad. But somewhere down the line, the Democratic Party lost the plot. I'll be very honest. It wasn't always bad. The Republican Party, putting that to one side. But yeah, they weren't always bad. I agree 100%. The Democratic Party wasn't always bad. Somewhere down the line, they got worse and worse and worse. And they've digged such a big hole now the Democratic Party cannot crawl out of. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Let's go, Scott. Now, UK government. The UK government engages with OKX exchange to bolster crypto ecosystems. So the UK seems to be taking more footsteps inside the crypto space, which is great to see from the UK government because they are moving at a snail's pace, to be fairly honest. And it's only because of the recent sit-down Trump had with Keir Starmer, the most unpopular, essentially, prime minister the UK government has ever had. The UK government essentially and OKX Exchange are collaborating to foster a transparent and regulated crypto ecosystem. Lucy and Star essentially met in London to advance the UK's position in global essential crypto developments and emphasize compliance and innovation. The UK Treasury, essentially represented by Lucy, met Star, the essentially CEO of OKX Exchange, in London to foster a more transparent and regulated crypto ecosystem. It's great to see the UK is taking footsteps inside the crypto space. The interaction signals the UK's focus on becoming a global hub for crypto essential innovation and potentially influencing regulatory practices and market expansions. Lucy, essentially Rigby, representing the UK Treasury, and Star Zhu, essentially she of the OKX Exchange, met to promote crypto regulations. Rigby highlighted the UK's ambitions, while essentially she addressed the compliance and innovations inside the United Kingdom. Their discussions focused on creating a secure crypto environment. OKX Exchange emphasizes dedication to a fair and transparent market practices. Rigby essentially also statements showed that the UK's strict interest in leading crypto global assets. This is what was said. I am pleased to meet with Star Shi, the CEO of the globally leading essentially crypto asset trading platform OKX in London, and I look forward to continuing to work with OKX and more innovative companies to jointly promote the UK as a leading destination for crypto, essentially for global crypto asset developments, said Lucy Rigby, Economic Secretary to the Treasury, the UK government. And the meetings essentially benefiting the enhanced regulatory frameworks and encouragements for more frameworks like X to establish inside the UK. Also, there's news around that Ripple is, side note, there's a news going around that Ripple is about to be acquiring the top floor in one of the most prestigious buildings in essentially the city of London for the new Ripple office in London. And they did this essentially announcement today that and it's got something to do with the newest acquisition they made towards G Treasury. But Ripple is about to be acquiring one of the most prestigious buildings inside the city of London. The top floor of it is going to be Ripple's new offices in London. Now, going back to this, there are no immediate market changes or financial implications were reported. Their increasing essentially attention could spur innovation. OKX's engagements with UK officials underscores a regulatory alignment that may set precedents essentially for other exchanges. This essential alignment could lead to further technological advances in this sector. Historical events do show similar meetings have enhanced compliance pathways, leading to increased trading volumes and also essentially innovation, which aim to attract more crypto firms and foster essentially a dynamic, well-regulated essentially market. Potential outcomes also do include advanced regulatory policies that support market growth while ensuring user protections. And the inclusion essentially of major exchanges aligning with UK policies could see similar trends seen in past engagements with regional essentially regulators. Now, what is interesting is that even though the UK has finally had some sort of a sit down with a crypto exchange, quite a big one, OKX Exchange is big as a crypto exchange. Kraken Exchange, on the other hand, thinks that the UK is still moving at an extremely slow pace. So here is from Kraken's perspective of what's happening in the UK. Kraken warns that UK risks falling behind on tokenized assets and stablecoins and pretty much everything else. The managing director of Kraken UK said Britain must accelerate in terms of regulatory clarity around tokenized assets and stablecoins or risk losing ground to rival financial hubs. And one of those financial hubs being essentially US, and the other essentially being Dubai or Singapore or Hong Kong or Tokyo, the list goes on. Now, speaking at the essentially Zebu Live in London essentially today, Das said the UK remains one of Kraken's largest markets globally, but warned that policymakers need to move faster. Das essentially described the UK's consultative essentially approach as the right one, but said regulators should allow firms to test new products such as tokenized securities in the essentially the markets more quickly, and we need to be brave on the things that we know will make a difference, he said. Maybe there is a light at the end of the tunnel to this relatively quick. We all hope so. He pointed to the Kraken's rollout of X stocks in the European Union early this year, a tokenized asset product not yet available in the UK. Why? Because the UK doesn't have regulations still, which he essentially said was attracting millions in daily inflows in the EU. The product lets investors gain exposure to listed equities through blockchain-based wrappers, a format that's described as a stepping stone to something much more super interesting. Kraken's UK chief says that regulators must give firms room to innovate with tokenized assets or risk seeking capital, essentially, or risk seeing capital and talent flow to more agile markets. Now, in 2024, the UK lost over roughly 10,000 millionaires to billionaires left the UK because of high taxes. Incredibly, the Labour Party, which day one said that they won't raise the taxes, have raised the taxes even more, that the UK could be climbing en route to become the next US in terms of their debts if they continue down this path. And that said, the Financial Conduct Authority, the FCA, had shown willingness to engage essentially the crypto industry, but the banks of England essentially remained less open to experimentation. He cited his proposal to cap essentially corporate stablecoin exposure, a measure some industry players see as an effective ban on institutional use. The call for speed comes in political change. Das noted that the monumentum essentially of crypto regulations, which had picked up under the previous essentially conservative government, slowed after 2024 snap election and must restart under the new Labour administration. The previous administration we had in the UK were very pro-crypto and were making some sort of noise and some sort of announcements and moving towards regulations for the crypto sector. The Labour Party, which is the new administration we have inside the UK, are not interested in that. They're more interested on taxing citizens as much as they can before their term ends. Now, interest rose briefly before stalling, he said, adding that the education dialogue remained essential to getting policy right. To be fair, essentially, to the Labour Party, every administration we've had in this country has just decided to tax the citizens. But that goes for every country, to be fairly honest. And that's why politicians are not the most favorite person. They're not the most favorable person to anyone, to be fairly honest. Nobody likes politicians because they all lie just to get votes and then steal taxpayer money. Despite the delays, that said, the UK has now a clearer roadmap towards comprehensive crypto oversights covering custody, trading, infrastructure, and cross-border liquidity areas, he said, had been essentially overlooked by traditional regulators. There are nuts and essentially bolts of market structure. He said, we just need to move faster. The UK remains Kraken's second largest market outside the US, and the exchange continues to expand despite tighter local promotion rules. And that said, roughly 20% of the UK now owns crypto, calling it pretty significant given recent restrictions on advertising and financial promotions. Now, Kraken recently also launched Crack, a neobank style app that combines trading with payments essentially and banking features. The app will include debit cards for the UK and European users, allowing them to receive salaries, making cross-border transfers, and earning stablecoin yields. So if you are in the UK or essentially in the EU, Kraken does have a neobank essentially app called essentially Crack. If anybody wants to go and check it out, it's a weird name to have for a bank to be calling it Crack, but whatever works. Allowing them to receive salaries, making cross-border transfers, and earn stablecoin yields, if you want to go and check it out. The company also revamped its consumer app, essentially to make onboarding easier and increase retail demand. While tokenized stocks remain unavailable in the UK, Kraken continues to prepare for the future in which essentially blockchain-based financial products are integrated into the mainstream banking systems. With new products like Crack, and it's a weird name for a banking app. I mean, Kraken should really go to drawing boards and maybe change that name out because, well, you know, Crack. and X stocks, Kraken, essentially positioning for a regulated tokenization era. Now, but says essentially the UK must move faster to essentially stay competitive. Reflecting essentially on October 10th market crash on liquidations, that said the industry showed greater essential resilience than in previous downturns. If you had the same thing 5 years ago, you'd have seen the failure of the number of institutions, he said, and the market now has essentially more longevity and strength than it used to have. Kraken's focus essentially on regulatory engagements and infrastructure developments mirrors a broader trend essentially among global exchanges seeking essentially stability ahead of the next growth cycles. So that's essentially coming out talking about how the UK could become an innovation hub, a financial hub for the entire crypto space, for the European market space, or for the West, to be fairly honest, because as we all know, Washington, D.C., a province of its own, capital of politics, City of London, province of its own, the essentially capital of finance, and obviously the Vatican, capital of religion, province of its own. The UK, if it wants to continue that tradition of the City of London being the capital of the financial hub, it needs to move at a much more rapid pace, because the cryptocurrency space is just going to move away. Honestly, the crypto space essentially is just going to move away from the United Kingdom and go into essentially the EU because of MiCA regulations, although it might go to Dubai essentially. What will happen essentially, what happened to the US when Biden was the president of the United States is exactly the same thing that's going to play out in the UK. The same way Biden was president back then, and every crypto firm decided to leave the US and take their capital with them and their innovation and go to Dubai, is the exact same thing that's going to be happening in the UK, because we have a very incompetent administration inside the UK that couldn't care less about anything else except taxes. Now, BNB chain is what we can talk about next on tonight's live. But before we talk about BNB chain, let's go inside the comment section first. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you do have any questions or comments, put it down inside the comment section. And I read everybody's comments one by one. So I'm going to get to everyone's comments. Let's see where we're at inside the comment section. We were at here. Sorry, brother, about my grammatical errors and my communications. No problem, Scott. Don't worry about it. I see the construction work has started to build essentially Trump's ballroom funded by crypto legends. Facts. Essentially, just want to point one thing out as well regarding what Trump is building at the White House. Essentially, the massive ballroom essentially for the White House. A lot of people are thinking that's being funded by tax-paying dollars. It's crypto funds. $250 million paid by crypto CEOs to build a ballroom in the White House. And just for anyone out there that's thinking it's paid by tax-paying dollars, it's not. It's crypto firms that are actually paying for it. Good evening, Miles, the CMF. Manny, good to see you. How you doing? Trump needs to tweet some bullish news for crypto. I agree, but what we definitely need is the regulations. We need the utility more than anything. Miles, do you think Lords of London has any involvements in Ripple and or XRP? No. The Lords of London are only good for one thing: tax-paying money, to be fairly honest. And they do nothing for the British, essentially, people. Absolutely nothing. I'm getting dizzy on this Hitler ride. Hi, what is this live about? MW, this live is essentially called the CMF. It stands for Crypto Miles Family. My name is Miles. And essentially, I talk about cryptocurrency news, CBDC news, AI news, political news, everything related towards the market space and how this world is transforming into a digital space. That's what this live is about. And welcome to the CMF. Crack for, yeah, pretty much. It's the reason why it's a weird name for a banking app. Now, BNB is what we'll talk about next. BNB chain is doing quite well for itself, and they've decided to go towards a payment system now. So better payment unite with global settlements. In a major development for the crypto fintech world, BNB chain has announced a strategic partnership with Better Payment Network to develop a multi-stablecoin global settlement network. This initiative aims to create a faster, more efficient, and borderless financial infrastructure, making stablecoin-based transactions more accessible worldwide. The collaboration will leverage essentially BNB's chain, blockchain scalability, and Better Payment Network's fintech, essentially financial tech, to streamline cross-border transactions and using multiple stablecoins. Traditional cross-border payments can be slow, expensive, and reliant on outdated systems. By using a multi-stablecoin system, this new network aims to solve major essentially points in the new networks and aims to solve major essentially friction points in the global financial sector, like settlements, delays, high fees, and limited currency essentially supports. With this increasing adoption of stablecoins such as USDT, USDC, RLUSD, and others, this system is expected to support multiple digital currencies while offering real-time essentially settlement options. Businesses and individuals alike could benefit from smoother international transactions. This move also strengthens BNB's chain positioning such as a leading blockchain platform for real-world financial use cases. By supporting a global settlement layer, BNB Chain is moving beyond DeFi and meme coins into a broader financial infrastructure. Typically, when blockchains make their money from the meme coin eras, they tend to move on to a much more mature market space, which is what's happening with BNB. They're moving away from the meme coin era to a much more structural, foundational financial era now. Now, moving on essentially from the BNB chain news to Coinbase. Coinbase has acquired a crypto platform essentially called Echo for $375 million. So Coinbase announced today the acquisition of the on-chain investment platform Echo Limited for $375 million, marking essentially the company's 8th major purchase essentially this year. The acquisition enhances Coinbase's capabilities in on-chain capital markets, driven by supportive US crypto policies, significantly impacting investment access and market confidence. Coinbase announced the acquisition of Echo, an investment platform funded by Jordan Fish in 2024 for $375 million in a deal combining cash and stocks. Echo, known essentially for its Sonar tool for listing decentralized public token sales, will maintain its brand and operate independently, a decision confirmed by Echo's founder, Jordan Fish. But now the company is owned by essentially Coinbase. This has helped essentially Coinbase's stock to rise 2.31%, purchasing this company out, essentially making this acquisition happen. I certainly didn't think Echo would be sold to Coinbase, but here we are, said essentially the founder of Echo. He didn't believe that his company could be sold to Coinbase. Responses on social media have mostly been positive, highlighting essentially the fundraising and the project's legitimacy. Prominent essentially crypto figures, including Fish, emphasized their surprise at the deal, but expressed optimism about Echo's future under Coinbase's umbrella. So, if you are somebody that is holding Coinbase's stock, or essentially is into Base token, this could play out very well. Essentially, Coinbase purchasing this company out, it could expand them even further inside the financial sector or inside the crypto sector, to be fairly more honest. And it did help Coinbase's stock rise 2.30% today because of that announcement. Now, moving on from that to Solana. You see, 2 years ago, Solana released a Solana phone, smartphone, Android phone. And back then, I said to people who watch, essentially, to the CMF and anybody else that was watching live shows that I used to do, that it's just an Android phone, it's a gimmick, and not that there's anything wrong with Androids. I like both. Just to be fairly honest, I like both operating systems. I like Apple's operating system for its benefits. I like the Android operating system for its own benefits as well. But putting all that to one side, I said the Solana phone is just a gimmick 2 years ago. And I said it's a waste of money for anybody purchasing Solana phones. It's just an Android phone with a Solana app, which makes no sense. And you fast forward to essentially to today, where Solana is going to be ending its support for the Saga phones after just 2 years. Solana is going to be ending its support just after 2 years of releasing these Solana smartphones, these Solana Android phones with just a Solana app on them. So which means these phones will not be receiving any updates, any security updates, so at least people's assets are secure on their Solana phones. In other words, it was an absolute waste of money for anybody that brought a Solana phone. Solana Mobile has officially ended support for its Saga smartphones just 2 years after its launch. The company confirmed that it will no longer provide software or security updates, effectively marking the end of the device's life cycle. just after 2 years. The Solana mobile saga has reached the end of its support lifecycle, the company said in its post on its own website, warning that compatibility with new softwares or services cannot be guaranteed, and customer service will now be limited to basic inquiries. Not only is Solana going to be ending its security updates for its Solana phones, but it also had the cheek to put it on its own website that customer support is limited. So they're telling people, if you brought a Solana Saga phone, you won't have any more safety on your crypto assets because the phone receives 0 updates in terms of security or infrastructure. And that if you do have any questions, even though you brought the Solana phone and now you're stuck with the Solana phone that will never be updated or secured, we also have limited, essentially, customer support available. The announcement means that Saga owners essentially will no longer receive vital security patches, leaving devices increasingly exposed to vulnerabilities. Is this the way Solana is trying to build their reputation with their essentially Solana base of essentially community or Solana communities? Is this really the best way for Solana to be building that relationship with them? The 2-year cutoff contracts sharply with industry standards. Apple supports essentially, just to be fairly honest, if you're thinking to yourself, 2 years was a lot of time, for them to provide updates and so on, it's okay. Apple provides at least minimum 5 years support for all of their devices. Android sometimes goes beyond 5 years to 6 years to 7 years in terms of support. Solana, just after 2 years, they're closing operations. The Saga phone, which was pitched as a Web3 native smartphone designed to merge blockchain tools with everyday mobile essentially functionalities and bypass restrictive app store rules, built by California-based essentially OSIM in collaboration with Solana Mobile, the device sold around 20,000 units, far below its 50,000 unit target. For many users, essentially, Saga's legacy lies less in mobile innovation and more in the unexpected role in Solana's meme coin frenzy. When Solana first released this phone, it did terrible in sales. There was expecting 50,000 people to pre-order it. It was 20,000 people that pre-ordered. Then Solana came up with the genius idea to preload the rest of the phones they have with meme coins, which then made the phones sell out. But then now everybody who bought those phones is stuck. So your best option with your Solana phone would be to throw it in the bin at this point. The phone shipped essentially with preloaded crypto wallets, which later became targets for lucrative token airdrops through the Solana essentially based projects, and its new Seeker phone essentially casting doubts on whether crypto branded hardware can survive beyond hype cycles. And the new Solana phone that's coming out, so the old one, the first generation one, after 2 years, just throw it in the bin because it's not useful anymore. The new Solana phone that's coming out called Seeker, people are having doubts if the same scenario is going to be playing out, where Solana just after 1 year or 2 years goes, yeah, we don't care about this one either. Honestly, I said this at the beginning when the first announcement was made on a Solana phone. I said it's useless and there's no point. And I'll say it again, it's useless and there's no point. Moving on from the Solana phones that most people are going to be throwing into the bins now, or the rubbish, in other words, to the Fed. Fed proposes limited access master accounts for eligible institutions. This one's a big news. This one's a very big news. But before we go through it, let's go inside the comment section first. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you do have any questions or comments, put it down in the comment section. I'm more than happy to help you out. So let's see what's happening inside the comment section first, and then go straight into the biggest news on tonight's live. Let's see where we're at. We're here. Let's go, Scott. Ian says Trump's cleaning out the badness in America during this shutdown. I agree 100%. Hello, sir. Is God real? Yes, of course it is. Of course God is real. Now, Fed. Fed proposes limited access master accounts for eligible institutions. Federal Reserve Governor Chris essentially Waller has proposed a skinny master account for eligible institutions to boost financial infrastructure efficiency, announced during the recent Federal Reserve meeting in Washington. So the only announcement we've had from the Fed today is this one, which was a question essentially that Funky asked, did we get any news coming out of the Fed? This is the only one. And this is a big one. If you haven't seen it, or if you have seen it, I'm about to tell you, which is regarding Ripple, Circle, Paxos, or any other company that applied for essentially a banking essentially charter license, and Ripple also going a step further, applying for a Fed master account, which made all the banks absolutely, put them into fear mode. Someone like Ripple coming into the banking sector, getting access to Fed master accounts, which made all the banks essentially send letters through the banking associations to the OCC to slow down progress for Ripple, which we talked about in the past, and essentially months ago. But the newest update from the Fed, it seems like the Fed is opening up a loophole for companies like Ripple to be able to get a Fed master account. So it seems like the letters the banks sent through the banking association to essentially the Federal Reserve or to the OCC didn't work, because the Fed is about to be opening up some sort of a loophole so a company like Ripple can actually have access to the Fed accounts. So here it is. The Federal Reserve Governor, Chris Waller, has proposed a skinny master accounts for eligible institutions to boost financial infrastructure efficiency, announced during a recent Federal Reserve meeting in Washington. This proposal essentially potentially enhances efficiency for crypto firms like Ripple, improving access to the Fed's payment infrastructure, with potential positive impacts on assets such as XRP. Because the Fed master account that Ripple's trying to get will give XRP Ledger access to the Fed master accounts. Now, the Federal Reserve Governor, Chris Waller, has suggested creating a skinny master account that provides limited access for eligible institutions. This new initiative forms a part of the efforts to enhance payment infrastructure effectiveness for crypto, essentially, enterprises. The proposal is a significant step towards enhancing the payment system by improving access and efficiency for institutions that currently do not have direct access, said Chris Waller, the Federal Reserve Governor. Crypto briefing institutions like Ripple and Anchorage stand to gain significantly from this proposal. The proposal that was made by the Fed today is going to open the door for Ripple to have an account with the Fed master account, which means Ripple is going to go par on par with the best banks out there and obviously win, to be fairly honest. There was a reason the banking associations sent letters to the OCC to slow down Ripple's progress on getting a banking charter license or a Fed master account, because the banks told the banking associations to do that for them. There was a reason why the SEC slowed down Ripple's progress, because the banks weaponized the SEC, Gary Gensler, to go after Ripple, because they all fear what Ripple could bring to the table. But it seems like the Fed is now technically on Ripple's side, and so is the OCC, because not only are they rejecting the bank's letters they've been sending to them, but they're now opening the door for a company like Ripple to actually get access to the Fed master accounts. The crypto briefing institutions like Ripple and Anchorage stand to gain significantly from this proposal. The suggested action aims to enable these entities to engage better with the Federal Reserve and financial systems, the potentially augmenting essentially their operational capacity in terms of opening the doors for them. Access to the Fed payment infrastructure aims to lower cost and improve transaction efficiencies for the involved crypto firms. And who are the crypto firms that are trying to apply for a Fed master account? Ripple. This could result in a heightened financial ecosystem, benefiting both the participants and larger market operations. The proposed system could foster a more pronounced integration of crypto firms into traditional finance. This would provide regulatory clarity and transactional legitimacy, boosting operational transactions for firms such as Ripple XRP. The Federal Reserve's recent actions indicate increased willingness to accommodate crypto entities. The Federal Reserve's recent actions essentially indicate increased willingness to accommodate crypto entities within traditional financial frameworks, hoping to bridge the market gaps. Analysis suggests that this move could mark a significant regulatory turning point, paving the pathways for enhanced financial integration. This proposal could lead to increased liquidity and involvements in essentially decentralized financial protocols, leveraging enhanced trust and transaction efficiency. And basically, here is the completion of a relative quotes about the Federal Reserve's proposal for a skinny master account based on the available sources. So this is what was some of the words that was said at this event, at the Federal Essential Reserve meeting. Chris Waller, Federal Reserve Governor, said in his own words, "This proposal is a significant step enhancing the payment system by improving access and efficiency for institutions that currently do not have direct access." Who doesn't have direct access to the federal master accounts? And who wants direct access to those accounts? Ripple. So this is now going to open the door for Ripple to enter the Fed accounts. The crypto briefing session, and Brad Garlinghouse, essentially the CEO of Ripple, also had some words to say. Regulatory clarity is essential for the growth of cryptocurrency markets, and any move by the Fed in this direction can potentially bring much needed legitimacy. So Chris Waller said the Fed is about to open its doors and give access to companies that want, essentially institutions that want access to the Federal Reserve. Who has applied to have access to essentially the master accounts? Ripple. Ripple's CEO saying if the Fed takes any steps in this direction, it brings legitimacy for the crypto space. While direct quotes from other essentially influential figures or primary sources may be limited, these statements reflect the ongoing conversations surrounding the proposal and its potential impacts on the cryptocurrency space, or in this case, Ripple. This is massive news. We went from the banks weaponizing Gary Gensler and the SEC to go after Ripple and slow them down so the banks could catch up and build some sort of platforms, which they built on Ethereum, which are completely useless, to be fairly honest. And then essentially we went now towards the Feds, or essentially the banking associations, once again through the banks, sending letters to the OCC to stop Ripple's progress, or sending letters to the Fed to stop Ripple's progress, to now fast forward to today, where the announcement comes out that at the Fed meeting, what was actually discussed and what was about to be happening is the Fed is about to be opening its master account doors to a loophole, essentially, to institutions that want to have access to it. And who wants access to it? Ripple. So it seems like the banks are not going to be sleeping quite well tonight, because Ripple is about to go head to head with them very soon. Now, on that note, we have also come to the endings of tonight's live. This was episode 391 of the CMF Live. Episode 392 will be tomorrow. This was CMF Live. It starts with Crypto Miles family. If you're watching this for the first time ever, my name is Miles. You can tune to this live Monday to Friday, 10 p.m. London time onwards for the most recent news regarding cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, regulations, vital information for you to know about regarding the world completely transforming into a digital space. And that is huge news for Ripple. Massive news for Ripple. And just yesterday's live show, I was saying just with two companies, Hidden Road and G Treasury, Ripple could reach $200 to $300 per token per XRP. This giving Ripple access to the Fed master accounts, well, at this point, the sky's the limit. Now, before we do go, obviously, let's go inside the comment section first, and then we will call it a night. And also the disclaimer of this live show, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. So let's go inside the comment section first, obviously, before we do call it a night. Let's see where we're at. We were here. 1.75 trillion wiped off gold market cap today, Miles, and what effects will this have? Well, it should be flowing, some of it should be flowing in towards the crypto sector, to be fairly honest. Night, Miles, and CMF, Pablo, good to see you tomorrow, sometimes usual as well. But Ian, some of that money should be flowing into crypto. Great live, Miles. Thank you. Good night, Miles and CMF. Jason, see you tomorrow, sometimes usual as well. Thank you a bunch, Miles. Have a lovely night, all. Lena, see you tomorrow, sometimes usual. Good night, Miles and CMF family. Funky brother, see you tomorrow, sometimes usual. Amazing news. Thanks for your insights, Miles. Much appreciated. Let's go, Shelly. See you tomorrow, sometime as usual. Great work, Miles. Thanks again. Let's go, Komoto. See you tomorrow, sometime as usual. Ripple and the Fed. Dang, big news, especially reading what the CMF and Miles are investing in. Let's go, Ray. See you tomorrow, but same time as usual. Good night, Miles, and all the CMF. Thank you for great live and news. Let's go, JPC, tomorrow, but same time as usual. Exciting news for sure. Night, Miles, and all. Let's go, Susie. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Outstanding show. Take care, Miles and CMF. Ray, see you tomorrow, but same time as usual. Good night, Miles. Stormy, see you tomorrow, same time as usual. 1.1K watching. Let's go, Lena. Honestly, thank you so much to everybody who has already liked and retweeted this live. Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much to everybody from the CMF who smashed the like buttons, who smashed the retweet buttons, and put a comment outside live on X. And thank you so much to everyone on YouTube who's also liked the live as well. If you're watching from YouTube, and put a comment outside live as well. If you have a CMF member, take 2 to 3 seconds, like, retweet, and put a comment outside the live. And if you are new and you did this as well, thank you so much for liking and retweeting and for subscribing or following. Welcome to the CMF. Thanks. Let's go, Stormy. See you tomorrow, sometimes usually as well. Good night, Miles. Thanks for your hard work. We have a good news for Ripple, and it's not finished. See you, brother. Let's go, Carl. See you tomorrow, sometimes usual. Thank you very much, Miles and CMF family, for all you do. I really appreciate it. Let's go, Carlos. See you tomorrow, sometimes as usual. Good night, Miles. The news is getting more and more exciting. See you tomorrow. Let's go free forever. See you tomorrow, sometimes as usual. Good night, Miles and family. Great live many times. See you tomorrow. Ian, see you tomorrow, same time as usual. Thanks. Let's go, Ian. See you tomorrow, brother, same time as usual. I will see everybody tomorrow, same timing as usual. Everybody have a great day or a good night, depending on where you're around the world. See you tomorrow for episode 392 of the CMF Live, Monday, Friday, 10 p.m. long time onwards. Thank you. Let's go, Mike. See you tomorrow, brother, same time as usual. See everybody tomorrow, same time as usual. Everybody have a great day or a good night, depending on where you're around the world, CMF. And if you followed to subscribe during this live, thank you so much and welcome to CMF. See everybody tomorrow. Love you all.